we can start the first question, which is, why are you learning English? So maybe Anna, you can tell us why you are
Yeah.
learning English.
Yeah, I want the confidence. I meet for foreigners. Yeah, learning English is my goal to improve my knowledge. And last holidays, I had two Scottish girls. I met them through a friend. They came to my house to have a test holiday with us. So they know a little Vietnamese, and we talk a little bit inconvenient. Yeah, she speak English, I speak Vietnamese. We also stay together for 10 days. So I want to know more about them, but I couldn't. I really want to speak English better. Yeah, I often encounter such situations. So,
Okay,
I think,
so you want to speak more with other people. You want to learn about other people, other cultures. I see. And so these Scottish women, you met them during this past Tet holiday 2 months ago?
yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
I see. I see. That's nice. And
yeah,
they learned a little bit of Vietnamese?
yeah. They
Oh,
learn, but she learned it about 10 years ago, so she don't remember much. So
I see.
it's,
Okay, so that's great. And how about you, Alphalina? Why would you like to learn English?
Yeah. The first, I want to move to Canada, so I want to learn English. I admire their educations. Canada. Yeah. One day I met girlfriends, my best friends. She told me Miss Han, about Miss Han. She told me we are studying English is wrong. We are focused grammar, and don't care pronunciations and the sounds. So we speak English. They don't understand we talk. I think she right. So I studies English with Miss Han. As I never talk, I get up early.
I see.
5 a.m. Yeah. Now I see I speak English better. Yeah.
I see. Yeah, I think I see what you mean about. I think though it is very important to also pay attention to grammar.
Yeah.
You know, and what you say is that we don't really focus much on grammar, and we learn more about pronunciation. But I can see that, because most students are not very good with their grammar. And I think that's, so everybody has a different style, right? A different teaching style, and they think one thing is more important than another. My view is that grammar is also very important, you know, and I think it is important to be able to write well and to speak proper grammar, you know, and so I always try to, with the classes and the homeworks, to improve people's grammar, you know. So I feel like sometimes we can write, but we have a hard time writing very simple sentences, you know, because we don't really pay enough attention to the grammar. So maybe you know, somebody would write, I go to the market yesterday, you know, and it's supposed to be, I went to the market yesterday, right? So it's very simple sentences like this. It's not a complex sentence. It's very basic that many people struggle to write because we don't focus on grammar here. So I still think it's important to focus on grammar. I mean, when we learn English in school in the US, we spend a lot of time on English grammar, you know, and other students learning languages like French and Portuguese, grammar takes a long time, right? Grammar is one of the harder parts about learning English and learning French and some of these other European-based languages. So the students focus a lot of their time on grammar. And I think grammar is less, so it's a little bit the opposite in Vietnam, I think, right? Like Vietnamese language is less complicated with grammar, but more complex with the pronunciation, right? So for example, I think maybe she thinks maybe that in Vietnamese language, it's so important to pronounce, right? It's super important to have proper pronunciation in Vietnamese. And it's more complicated. And the grammar is easier in Vietnamese. So in Vietnamese, if you want to learn Vietnamese, you should practice pronunciation a lot, right? It's very important and it's more difficult. So you should spend a lot more time pronouncing words in Vietnamese. So I think maybe this is where Hang gets this idea from, that we should focus a lot on pronunciation. But I would argue that in English, I think we should focus on both. You know, we should spend a lot of time on pronunciation, but we should also spend a lot of time on grammar, and maybe even more time on grammar, because grammar is much more complex and more difficult in English. So everybody that you will meet that is trying to teach you English will have a different opinion on this, right? Some people think this is important. Some people think another way is important. So I think it depends on you, on your opinion. What do you want to focus on? What is hard for you? What is easy for you? Yeah. But I think grammar is very important, right? Grammar is important because, for example, how about, here's an idea. We do a lot of communication on the internet, right? So we do a lot of communication writing to other people. So pronunciation is not really important in this way. If I write you a story or a paper or an article and I send it to you on the internet and you are reading what I am writing, then pronunciation doesn't matter at all. What matters entirely is your grammar, right? But if I'm speaking to you in the street, or if I'm going to the USA, then pronunciation is more important, right, than grammar. But I still feel like grammar is still important. Yeah, because if you don't have proper grammar, then people already, they will assume certain things about how you are learning. And yeah, so either way, I feel like you need to focus on grammar too. And it's going to take a long time to get really good in grammar, but it's very important in English to focus on grammar. So
Yeah, actually, I learned a lot of grammar when I were in school, but
mhm.
now I haven't gotten it.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So when you were in school, right? You say when you were in school or when I was in school, right?
I were.
I was, you say I was
I
in
yeah,
school.
I was.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
you were, right? You
Yeah.
were, I was, right?
Yeah.
This is what I mean. This is very basic. This is very,
Yeah.
very basic grammar that we often get wrong. So I think it's important to study these things. At least get the basic verbs, the past, the future, and the present tenses. Try to get them right. You know, try to practice them. You know, to have, to want, to like, to be. Yeah, to want, and make sure you can do them very easily. Okay, thanks for sharing. And how about you, Tully?
I want to learn English because I want to become a global citizen. If I become a global citizen, I can find a good job. I can find a good job, and I feel I am to be confident to speak English, and I read book and newspaper English, listen to the news radio, um, and I want to coaching my kids, and I want to confident travel abroad. In my opinion, I am learning English to feel freedom in my life. Yes.
Yeah, and I think also when you learn English, you'll be able to, so many more resources will be open to you. Like if you read Western news sources, you know, I think it gives you a different perspective on things. For example, maybe like Chinese people in China, if they go to read the news, their news is highly censored, right? So they cannot read, and if they read a Chinese newspaper, it's censored. So it only tells people what the government wants them to know. So if you can read English, then you can read other news sources in English that are telling you more what is happening, the real thing that is happening, right? And I think you can always use a translator, I suppose, but many times translators are, I don't know, they're not very good many times. Yeah. So it's better, I think, to understand how to read and write your own, you know, not use a translator.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks for sharing. And how about you, Collins? How come you are learning English?
Um, Actually, I don't have a specific reason why, because when I was like really small, like about 2 or 3, my mom already take me to a bilingual class in kindergarten. So I get used to use English at that time,
Uh-huh.
but I still using it till now because I want I think I want a brighter life in the future. Like in Vietnam, companies like they really want to hire some employees that they have another language, or more specifically, is that have English, and it's easy for you in if can get in an international school, then it would be easier to go study abroad, or and I heard that because in international school, like they only study for a like small time, like about 3 or 4 years, not like in Vietnam, like it's so long, and I can have a chance to go study postgraduate to like improve my skills before I get to work in the community.
I see.
So
Okay, that sounds great. So you started learning when you were very young.
yeah.
Okay, excellent. And how about you, Twee? Why are you learning English?
Yes, honestly, I think English is the population language on the world. And I like to study English when I study in primary school. Though many years I felt it was not effective, so I couldn't use English in communication. And I had a fear. I scared I spoke wrong. I wasn't confident. And there was many times I tried another way to learn study English. But I was not successful. And I felt boring and gave up. I remember the last year, I went to some seminar about investment tongues, and they spoke English. I only understood a little, so I must belong to the translator. And I felt this translator might not translate not the right meaning, and that the speaker said, when I was I was angry with myself, I realized that it's worth to break word. I thought if I delay study English more, I would dependent a lot of things, and I couldn't get good news and never develop myself. And another story, there was time my daughter asked me, how does the teacher want to read? And I read that, and she told me, you were wrong, you're wrong. And suddenly I felt my English was too bad. And I tried to read again and again, but she told me, you were wrong. And I don't want to miss many things apply in the present and the future. So I need to study English good at. I need to study good at English to be free. Yes, that's all.
Yeah, I think that's great. And do you feel like you use the internet a lot for resources to learn English?
I think it was not effective, because if you don't know the way to learn English, you feel many things you can read. And until I met Miss Hằng, I felt this is the way to learn, the good way to learn English. And I got it.
I see.
I feel I grew my English skill after 4 or 5 months. I learned with her.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I think there are a lot of different ways you can learn, and I think using the internet for different things is also, in addition, you know, also using the internet for ways like to improve your listening skills. For example, you could watch a lot of different YouTube videos with subtitles, and you can read a lot of news sources and different forms of entertainment on YouTube and on the internet to help you practice. You know, I think it's nice. For example, there's so much material on the internet in English, but it's more difficult. For example, if I want to learn Vietnamese, it's more difficult. There is not as much material on the internet. You know, like if I typed in on YouTube, you know, I could find anything I want to learn about in English in all different levels. I can find little shows for children, cartoons. I can find education things. I can find classes how to speak English. Like there's just so much material in English for you to study and to listen. And yeah, I would just say try to take advantage of that also. You know, try to do a lot of things in English on the internet. Try to read the news sources on the internet, and yeah, there's so much there. And try to take advantage of it. I remember when like 20 years ago, I was in college and I wanted to learn a lot of German. So I was studying German in college, and there wasn't much material on the internet. I always wanted to be on like YouTube and try to find videos to listen, to help me listen and to hear. And there really wasn't that much on there. But now I feel like today there would be much more that I'd be able to find on there. But I feel like it would have been so helpful if if I had a lot of these things, access to these things at the time. But it's okay. I mean, I didn't have it, but you have it now. So I would say you should try to spend, you know, some time also doing other listening exercises and things like this on like YouTube, you know, to improve your listening skills, you know?
Yeah.
Okay.
How many language can you speak? You can speak.
Well, I'm only totally fluent in English. In Spanish, I can speak enough to. Geez. In Spanish, I can speak enough if nobody knows any English and I go to a Spanish-speaking country, then it's okay. I can still speak with everybody. But I'm not totally fluent, you know. And I learned, you know, the language of Nepal? Nepal is by India. Nepal and Bhutan.
Bhutan.
Yeah, but Nepal, I learned Nepali language. And I learned German. I could speak some German. And I try to learn some Vietnamese, but I'm not very good in Vietnamese. Very little Vietnamese. But it's okay. So it's fun to learn different languages, I think. You know?
Yeah.
Because you see that how they're related. As you move along the world, you'll find that they all have a common thread in them, you know? They're all very similar in many ways.
So I think you are amazing because I learning English about 20 years, so I can talk.
Well, you know, you just have to keep practicing. That's all. And okay, so our next question is, why do you think people are watching TV instead of reading books?
Yeah.
And is this true for you, Anna? Do you like to watch TV or do you like to read books?
In the past, I often watch TV. Yeah, I watch the entertainment show and movies. So then I realized I wasted so much my time on it. I found my days and feeling like my brain very inactive. So I decided to sell my television, and I invested my time on in reading. So I haven't seen a TV for about 5 years, and I think it's what a right decision. Yeah, book bring me great knowledge. I prefer to myself in book, and my mind is more connected. Yeah, and the book that's influencing me today the most is the one Store Revolution. Store Revolution.
Oh, I know this one. Yeah.
It was the first book I read after selling the television. So it's opened me up a new awareness
yeah.
about the environment, people, and myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's written by the Japanese guy, right?
No. Yeah, Japanese.
Yeah. It's a good book. I remember I read some of that.
Yeah.
It's like about keeping everything natural and all of this stuff. Yeah. Okay, I remember this one.
I learned that growing a tree or raising a baby is the same. Yeah, we just need to create the best conditions for things to develop.
Yeah.
I think that, yeah.
It's a good book, yeah. Okay. I used to like to, well, old shows in the USA used to be okay, but now the shows in the USA are not very good anymore because they are mostly with special effects like explosions and you know, people say, oh wow, this is really strange, you know, like something blows up, a building maybe falls down, you know, because they can do this with the computer. They can make it look very interesting on the TV. So they maybe make things blow up and it doesn't have a very interesting story anymore. Yeah. Okay, thank you. And how about you, Tully? How do you feel about TV or books?
I've seen rich people have small TVs and a big library, and poor people have small library and
big TV.
Yes. Many years ago, reading habits were not built. The television has a lot of pictures and sound very excited. And why read books are boring because us only test and test. Finding knowledge on TVs is faster, and reading book waste time. When I watching movie, I can eat, I can cook, and do exercise, and can talk with everyone. And now I want to read book because I want my kids read books than me because watching television not good health, and my eyes can less not good. My eyes.
I see. Interesting. Okay. I think also it's nice if you can read English because there is so much out there for books and in different arts. You know, for example, if somebody can only read Vietnamese, then Vietnam is a small country, right? It's not a very big place, so you would be very limited into what you can read. But if you have access to the English-speaking world, then there's a lot of different things, a lot of different art that you can engage in, through the English language. So it opens up many things, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And how about you, Collins? How do you feel about TV or about reading books?
So as a person who is in a young generation, for me, books is also boring because like there are first thing is that I think it's too much information, or maybe like there is a lot of philosophy around it, which young people I think is hard to understand. Like in my age, I don't know for like about 20 or above, but in my age it's really hard to understand it. And the second thing is that like there are too many words, and if we wanted to find information, it's really hard. Like it takes us time when the internet can do it more faster and maybe correctly than using books. And also because there are no like too big libraries nowadays, or maybe they have, but like it's too far from our house. And the third thing is that it's boring. Some books, and also there are a lot of copies and fake books nowadays. So we don't know if that is a fake one or not because they all sell in the bookstore. So we don't know if it's like real or not. And also we could using the ebooks because there is a lot of genre, a lot of stories, and there are also some ebooks they have like two language of the book, like English and Vietnamese or another language. So it's like if we wanted to practice any of our language, we could using that to read and like practicing. And I think people watching TV more than that because young people like us tend to like something like they are moving, like they have actions, colors, images to understand what kind of situation, what kind of thing that they like to say. Like when you're asking people to washing hand, if you give them the pictures, it would be more easier to communicate. So that I think that's the reason. And TV, they have more channel and more things to watch. So you can watch the news, the sports, some show. So it more than books. Like they just give out the words without images. So we could not imagine what is the thing they wanted to say.
I see. Okay. So, well, here's an interesting question. How about the idea that people, maybe newer generation, if they don't read books and they have all the images and all of these things presented to them and defined for them, do you think maybe that would make them less imaginative? in the future, you know, because like when you read a book, you get the basic framework, and then you have to be in your mind thinking, you know, like the environment is maybe a little bit different for me as opposed to how you are reading about it. Like there's a lot of leeway to create this world in your head when you're reading a book, whereas the world is clearly defined for you when you're watching television, right? It's every little detail you are seeing. So the idea is that, you know, do you think maybe younger people will have a harder time with their imagination and their creativity?
I think, yeah, maybe, but I don't know. I'm not a very like a book reader so much. So, but I think, yeah, like because images they show too many things, and they have show all the things. So like the creative in children will maybe less
Yeah.
than adults.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think maybe like your creative part of your mind and your imagination is just like learning a language. Like if you practice more and you are thinking more creative ways and in your mind imagining different things, you will continue to get better at this and have better imagination and more creativity. Like a language, if you keep trying to study a new language, with more practice, you will get better. Same way, if you're reading books, you know, you can develop a more creative and imaginative mind. Whereas if you just have a TV set, your mind is not working very hard because everything is done for you. Everything is put in your face and you don't have to imagine or think. It's just all done for you, you know?
Like but most you know, young people like us, they are like they're too busy, like in their words they said that they are too busy. So if they wanted to like get a fast information, they would like to have the TV instead of a book, because
Yeah, but are they
is like
really
their
busy though? I mean, I find a lot of people are wasting a lot of time on Facebook, on Instagram. I mean, I wouldn't call that busy. I would call that a waste of time. So if they don't read books because they're busy on Facebook, I wouldn't really say that's busy, you know. In some
and
cases,
because
I think maybe you're true, but in some, I think not.
yeah. And like I think young people, they're hard to find a spare time, like because like that we have Facebook, Instagram, and because we have got, if they wanted to read something they will have ebook. So like they will rather schooling Facebook and Instagram rather than reading books, because
Yeah.
that like it's more funnier and like get a lot of information at a time.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
like
I think it's an interesting question, right? It's going to give younger people a different perspective and a different skill set and a different mind, right? Like, so their minds are going to be different than the older people's, right? Because it's a different kind of culture, right? If you don't read and you look at Facebook as opposed to somebody who spends their whole life reading and not looking at Facebook, you will learn different skills. Like you will learn different social skills. You will have different creative and imagination skills, you know, different writing skills. It will be different. It is like a different way of spending time. And so the people will be a little bit different as well. Okay. I think it's a fun question. How do you think about it, Twee, about reading books or watching TV? Which do you
Yes,
prefer?
yes. I think people are watching TV or reading book. It's worth the habit per person. Now I see around me, everybody read fewer books than watching TV. I think because there are too many things attract them, like smartphone, iPad, and movie channel, Facebooks. And maybe people nowadays live fast, and they only need to update information or relax on TV. And I prefer reading I prefer read book than the watching TV. And you know, there is no TV at my house, and I don't want my daughter to watch the TV too much. And I practiced with her a good habit. I'll read a short story books before she goes to bed. And I think when I read physical books, I can my brain can take note the information, and I can remember too long. If I watch TV, I think it's the relaxed moment. It's the relaxed moment, and I got less information on TV.
Yeah, I
And
think that's right. You know, the people, if they're out working, you know, I think for like a lot of Americans, if they're working all day and they're kind of busy, they come home and they're tired. And so they don't, you know, reading a book, I think takes more energy. It takes more mind power,
yeah,
you know, so they don't want to read. They want to watch TV because it's like, it's just sort of an easy way of being entertained without having
yeah.
to use your mind. But the problem is, if you
And
don't use your mind and focus your mind,
yes,
then a lot of times you become stupid. Right?
yes, I think so.
Because it's like anything. You know how if you use English language, you will continue to improve and you will get better. If you don't use your English language, you will lose the skill, right? You will forget and you will lose the ability. And so what I say is that people who, if you just always watch TV and you sort of like you just not thinking, use your
Yeah.
brain, you will become stupid over time.
Yes, I think if I didn't read book a long time, uh, in Vietnamese I can speak because there was no words, no idea to communicate in communication in Vietnamese, and it was boring. I feel that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. And how do you feel about this, Ophelina?
Yeah. I think most people like watching TV because it has a lot of channel from game show, films, romantic film, cartoons, especially the children extremely like cartoon. Because I think they dress, so they work too much, so they like watching TVs to relax. But I don't like watching TVs. Instead, I like reading book because I think watching TV is not good for my eyes. Yeah, and I can bring my eye anywhere I like.
Yeah, I think cartoons. So like TV, I think maybe can be interesting in some ways. Like for example, cartoons
Yeah.
can be useful for children. You know,
No.
so if you want your children to start to learn English, for example, or even to learn Vietnamese, you know, it's a fun way for children to watch and they can learn from this. But the thing is, like, after some time, they won't learn anymore. It will just be kind of a way to waste time. And I think that this is kind of how it is for humans, like older adults. They don't learn from the TV anymore, right? They are just kind of wasting time. It's just a way to pass time. You generally, you know, most people I think that watch TV are just trying to pass the time, you know, to be entertained in some way that's really not very educational. It's just passing their time until they sleep or something like this, you know. So I think TV is a different function for children, like watching cartoons where they are learning things. But if you are an adult, you know, and you watch a cartoon, it's not as useful for you, right? I mean, you're not really going to learn. You're going to waste your time, really. You could be doing other things, learning something, or, I don't know, developing nice relationships with other people, spending your time in a more, I don't know, for me, I think in a more useful way. Yeah. Okay, so let's see. What is our next question is, why do you think people want children? Anna, how do you think about this? Why do people want children? And do they have too many children now?
Yeah, I have one child. So I think it's either instinct of our being. We grow up, we get married, and then we have kids. It's natural. It's always saying if you have children, you will live in happy health, and if you don't have children, you will live in both paradise. Yeah. The children are so adorable. They bring us positive energies. The child as a connection between the couple. And I have a neighbor. She and her husband tried to have a son. She has 5 daughters at the same time, and finally he had a son. So her son is the same age as my daughter, and the boy is interesting. He hits all the kids on the neighborhood. So he will cry out loud whenever he couldn't win another baby toy. So his mother told me that my mom is good today. He now took the knife and chased his parents around the house. So I think all her care is for her son only. And in this case, I think she wants to have children because of herself. Yeah, she wants to have someone to take care of her when she old. So she don't want to be told that she can't have a son. So she just think for herself. Yeah, I think that.
I see. Okay. I understand. And okay. And how about you, Tully? How do you feel about this? Why do you think people have children?
My mother is a traditional woman. I were greatly influenced by her. He told me many women are the most important in the family, and the main functions of woman is to be a mother. Many people think that having a baby to do after you get married. If you don't, the people around you think your family have a problem. For me, my choice came to me at the time I'm not prepared. I'm very surprised because I had been married for less than 2 months. The day I knew I became a mother, when I was reporting my education at university, and I remember that the day I was tired, worry, and happiness. And after now, my choice is everything. And I see that many women have a baby. It's very excited.
Yeah, I think in some ways, there are, you know, what about this idea that there are too many people? You know, like maybe it's a good idea if people do not, if not everybody has children anymore, you know, because everybody has children and there's no room for anything else, right? There's no room for animals, there's no room for trees, there's no room for good water, there's no room. You know, so I think like what Anne is saying is that it is the natural instinct that humans from nature want to reproduce. It's the natural instinct from all things living is to reproduce. I mean, I think that's probably, you would have a good argument to say that that is the meaning of your life, is to reproduce, you know, from nature's perspective. That is the meaning of all our lives. We should reproduce, and that's it. That's the meaning, to continue the species. But I think that right now we have gone crazy, right? That there's too many humans. There's so many humans that there is very little else. They take everything. You know, like I noticed when we went to Tadum a few weeks ago, and it's very beautiful, right? But if you look in the hills, there is nothing natural or wild anymore. It is all human developed, everything. So you think to yourself, like, where's the room for animals to live free? It's humans take everything. And so if we have more children and if more people continue to think like this, I think it's very destructive. It's very bad. You know, like you say, Tully, we need to have children, otherwise people will feel something is wrong with your relationship, or maybe some kind of problem. It's not natural if you don't have children, and this kind of thing, I think is a really terrible way of thinking, you know? And maybe in the future, people will change their mind and they will decide that, you know, maybe that the people who are doing it wrong are the people who are having children, and the people who are doing it right are the people not having children. Maybe, I don't know, maybe. It's an idea.
I also decided not to have any more children. Yeah, I think if I couldn't give my child clean water to drink, clean air to breathe, and even more harmful to the environment, I would not have a baby anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. Yeah. How do you think about this, Collins?
Well, I think like they have like few women they having a baby to make that man being responsible. Like if after married you realize that as some kind like a playboy or he didn't even care about the family job, relationship, then having a baby is some kind of a connection. If your love relationship still normal, then he when he knows that he's having a baby, he will be more responsible. So, and for if that is like his girlfriend, then he will try to afford a job to try to get them in a stable life, and maybe get some support from family. And also like them in Asian country, they I don't know, their mind, I mean like they have to have baby, like or don't, or else they will like having problems or some kind like that, or maybe just they don't want it. But others, what else I can't remember. Oh, young generation nowadays, they like really open, especially in Asian. So we do having like little fun before married. Like, okay, I would say more specifically is having sex. Like, and they don't using any protection, so it leads to pregnancy, unwanted pregnancy, and they couldn't do abortion because their parents didn't want it, so they married and they born that children out. So yeah, so that maybe that is some kind of like they didn't want children, but otherwise I think they want children because they just love them. Some people, they really love children and they really like to having as much children as they could possible.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, you know, the movement in the US and some other countries, the feminist movement, you know, and sort of like a women's rights movements and these kinds of things. I think it's interesting because traditionally when women have children, the women usually are the ones taking care of the children. All right, and I feel like it's very hard for women to continue to develop and improve themselves and have opportunities, you know, because most of the time women have to stop their career or stop their job or stop their education. It is usually the women who end up doing this, whereas the men continue to, you know, they have more, you know, they stick with the job and the career and everything. And so women become kind of stuck in a way, right? They cannot, it's very difficult for them to continue to develop themselves intellectually and in education and in a career. And they become more attached to this family idea than a man does, right? Because the woman now is spending more time with the children. And so her life is really kind of put on hold until the children get old enough to watch for themselves. Whereas the men, they still continue to work, or they can still continue to, you know, pursue these other things. I think so, like in the US with the feminist kind of movement, not having children is sort of like a freedom for women. You know, for example, we have the different students, and if I do, maybe like one student wants some extra help, and I talk to them on a chat or something after class, and we do some other things that they're having problems with. If they have children at home, it's extremely difficult for them because the children are all making noise, they're doing all of these things. The women, you cannot concentrate. Yeah, you cannot just focus and learn. You have a child running around doing things. So you are basically having to follow the child, you know? So it's very hard. So women's life, they cannot really, it's harder for them to continue to learn and to develop. They have to follow the child. So I don't know, I have kind of a different take on the whole children thing. You know, I think, I hope people's minds and society's mind changes about this idea that, you know, you need to have children. I think having children is one experience in life that is useful and interesting and valuable. But I think there are many experiences in life that are also interesting and valuable and useful. For example, my lifestyle, I don't have children, so I don't have that experience, but I travel a lot, right? And so I see and meet a lot of different people and see a lot of places in the world and meet different cultures. And for me, that's a valuable experience, right? And that people with children, it's more difficult for them to have the experience that I'm having, right? Because they have to be more kind of settled in a place and have a regular job, and the child has to have more stability. They can't move so much, you know. It's not good for children. Many times children have a harder childhood when their parents are in the military, you know, in the army or the Navy or in the government military, right? Because they move a lot. And so children that are raised in these families usually have a harder childhood because they have a hard time making friends and making deep connections with other children because they always move. So in their later in life, when they're older, they always kind of talk about their childhood, like, well, you know, we never lived in one place for very long. We always had to move to other towns. And I always had to make other friends. So this had a big impact on the child, always moving. So like my lifestyle is not really something that would be good for a child, I think, because they need stability and to connect with friends and people. It's hard for them to do if you're traveling a lot. So my point is that there are many different useful and interesting experiences in life. And right now, I think many people feel like they're very focused on the child experience, on having children, and that's being like their main reason in life, you know. But I think it will be useful for people to think differently in the future. Some people should, of course, people should still have children, but not everybody. You know, not everybody needs to have children. Not everybody is good at having children, right? Some people are very good parents, and some people are very bad parents. So I would say the people who are bad parents, and maybe they never should have had children, and they knew it, maybe, right? Maybe they know that, gee, I should never really have kids, but in my society, people think it is not right. Something is wrong with me or my relationship, like Tully is saying, if I don't have kids. So even though I might think to myself, I don't think I would be a good parent, I still will have kids. So I think this is a terrible thing, you know? So anyway, I guess we can, does anybody, do you want to share, Twee, about your thoughts on this? Twee?
And I think people usually get married because love, and finally the children was born. It means that is their reason, and my daughter is the reason for me. When I had a baby, I had a chance to see my parents more, and I must learn many things to see my daughter. And the children are not a reason of love, but also they connect people in the family. And when the children was born, we could learn many things from them. And I think it is a law of the universe. We had a chance to see our parents more, and they taught us to live a responsibility. And now there are some couples, they couldn't get a baby after a long time marriage, and they are not happy and doing everything they spend a lot of money, a lot of time to treat their problems. And I hope they have a baby naturally, or not. They consider they don't receive that reason from universe. Yes, I think so.
Okay. Thanks for sharing. And I think there are a lot of valid points that everybody's making. In terms of children, they do also help connect with people, right? Like you're saying, their connection maybe between you and your parents, or like Colin said about maybe if you're in a relationship with somebody and then you have a child, maybe this kind of further helps develop your relationship. And yeah, so I think these things are valid, but I also think that they're not the only way, right? It's not the only way to connect with your parents is through your children. It's not the only way to have a healthy relationship with somebody is by having a child with them. So I feel like there are other ways, and yeah, it's just a different perspective. And how about you, Ophelina? What do you think?
I extremely love Patty. Although I have 2 children, but I also have many Patty more. I think anywhere baby, anywhere have baby, is very very love, a lot of love. When I am so tired, I only play with my children. I can comfortable and relax. So I see we are very so nice and lovely. Honestly, when I was 20 years old, I am very lazy. I don't like cooking. But since I have children, I become to like cooking, and they help me to have many skills in my life. Yeah. I think most people like children because they lovely and innocent, hồn nhiên à, còn cái từ rồi. Yeah.
Okay, great. And the next question is, why are divorce rates climbing? Divorce rates are going higher, Anna?
I think divorce rate climbing because people haven't get to know each other well, and when they live together, they will see many bad habits of each other, and love was not big enough to overcome. And they have a different lifestyle and different families, so they can get along. They are under pressure of life and money, and I think they are influenced by movie and internet. They see others have things they don't have, so they think they are disadvantaged. They requiring their partner to fail and they break up. I think people need to be more responsible in their marriage. I have a friend, he divorced because his wife had an affair. So he had 2 daughters. When they divorced, each other adopt 1 child. But now his wife is getting married and he works far away and can take care of his children. One child living with his aunt and 1 child living with grandparents. 2 children do nothing wrong, but they also suffer. I think people should be more responsible in their relationship and especially in marriage. I think that.
So there is a lot of divorce in Vietnam, or not so much?
Very many people divorce.
Oh, I see.
I think many they just live each other about 1-2 years, so they divorce. I think they should responsible in their relationship. Yeah, it's really important with the children. Yeah, it's a fact.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a tricky situation because on one hand, I feel like, especially in Vietnam, a lot of people, like women who are not married when they are younger, have a lot of pressure. And then so maybe they feel like once they get to be, a certain age, that they need to find somebody to marry. And then they marry somebody that they should not have married.
Yeah,
But there is a lot of pressure, maybe from their parents or something.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of this stuff, so is it wrong for this person to get a divorce? I don't think so. I mean, I think people need to be happy, right? You're only going to live one time in your life. Yeah, you live one time. And so I think you need to do what makes you happy. So if you get married to somebody and you find out later that maybe you feel different now, or you grow in different directions, because when people change, it's natural. You change when you get older, and sometimes maybe you change in ways that are similar and you still stay together, but maybe sometimes you change in ways that are different.
Yeah.
And so should you say, well, I made my decision and that's all, I've never changed my decision, and then you're not really happy. I don't agree with that philosophy. I think it's okay.
Yeah, but I think people should get to know each other well before getting married.
They should, yes, of course. But even if you might know somebody very well, but if you're only 20 years old and you get married to maybe a man who's 20, who's 30, then when you become 30, you're probably going to be very different because you're too young when you're 20.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's an interesting question, I think. How do you think about it, Tully? Why is this happening? Why are divorce rates rising? Is it a good thing or bad?
I think in my opinion, there are main reasons. When the husband and the wife do not respect each other, and when the conflict as long, and again you get married at young age, and get married quickly, get married without love, and economics insurance. Social on Facebook, Yellow, people have higher emotions inquiries, and they push the husband or wife in standards, and want the other to change, or the change when not expected. They feel tired and want to change. As a society grows, love is not everything. There are many. There are family, careers, friends, and patience. I think the children living in the families with this readable parent have hurt feeling the children. Divorce is the result of a conflict. Divorce can help social development. People feel the freedom, and they still take care of their children. So when the couple not having feeling in love or having conflict, and conflict that can solve. I think divorce and a good behavior to each other. One door closed, will have another's open, the door open. Many opinions and good things are on way ahead. As
Okay.
long
Yeah, I see what you mean. Okay. How about you, Collins? Maybe you can give us the last say on this. We have other people coming now, so after Collins, I think we'll finish up here. How do you feel about divorce, Collins?
So I don't know. I haven't even married before, but I think it's because people nowadays, they tend to marry too soon, like the other says. Like they just know them for a few months or maybe a few years. They already know that, yeah, that's the one. So they got married, and then after that, they found out that there was a lot of pressure, a lot of things happen in married life that they could not be able to like have survived through it. So they're getting divorced to release each other out and to find something new. And men nowadays, they like, I don't know, a few years, like these years, a few men tend to like find something new after having a wife. Like it's like turns out to be a trend. Like so that may be the reason why the divorce rate climb. Also, I heard that in China, the university entrance exam in the country is too pressure, and even in Korea, not just China, it's too pressure. After that, parents get to divorce. So maybe because the pressure of the children, like that they forced their child to study hard to have a better life, that makes even the parents pressure, because if they could not get in a good school, then they could not have a brighter lives or something like that. So because it also make the parents more depressed, so they like the divorce to like some kind of release that pressure inside their heads. And I think at that moment, like their child also turns out to be an adult. So like anyway, they will live alone. So they don't need to take care of them anymore.
Okay. All right. Thanks for sharing. All right, so I still have a couple of papers and stuff to read from our last class, but I will do that today and look at our papers again. And I will post our morning video. And if you have any questions or need help with something, you should ask me. Okay? Have a good weekend. I will talk to you soon. Nice talking.